Hello, this is National Chess Master All Rats at chess.com. I'm here giving live coverage, which will go up on YouTube after, of the first America's Live Weekend Chess Championship. And there are six games going this round that I was able to locate. And thank you for adding me to your friends list. Some of you haven't yet, but I think I've got enough of you that I'll be able to cover every game. We had one game start late. The round is about an hour old now. I wasn't able to get here right away. I had a couple of online lessons to give. I keep very busy with chess, and I'm just going to do a quick look at the positions we have here. And I'm experiencing a little bit of lag. My computer's just running slow. It's been doing this the last day. Triple D has been disconnecting and reconnecting. Hopefully he doesn't lose on time. There was one game that started late. I'm trying to scroll to the next game, and it's not being cooperative. Good to see that it appears that most players are taking their time. As I think I mentioned, we had one game start kind of late for whatever reason. One drawback with a late start is you start with all the time on your clock. If you're playing in a real tournament and show up late, 40 minutes late, guess what? If your opponent was there on time, he started your clock and you've lost 40 minutes, and you're going to have to do your best, okay? So that's the game that started late here. You can see that there's plenty of time on both players' clocks. So let's go back to the beginning, and I'll start my commentary. Just looking at this position, White has the bishop pair, but he has a pair of double pawns. Black's got a great outpost for a knight on e5, although maybe he was there earlier and has moved out, but he can go back. It's under his control. So let's go to the beginning and see what happened. We have a kind of a modern approach to the queen pawn opening, where Black is doing a quick fianchetto. And here we have a quick exchange on c3. So now this explains how the double pawns happen. Usually it happens with the bishop coming to b4, but here it's coming this way. So Black has voluntarily weakened the dark squares on his king side to acquire these double pawns, and now he takes a positional approach here. He's going to try to control the e4 square, although it does possibly restrict the mobility of this bishop, and it does further weaken the dark squares around his king. I'm certain this type of plan has been covered before. I've seen similar positions. I've even played in a symmetrical English. I recently, 3 years ago, in Team 45 League over at ICC, I recall making a quick exchange on c3. Anyway, just moving forward a little bit. Now, here's where Black's going to acquire that outpost on e5 as a result of, there should be a pawn exchange here on e4 here in a moment. And White opts to prevent Black from castling by putting his bishop here. It does tie the bishop down to that square, but that may not be a bad thing. And whoops, hit the wrong button, arrow. We want to go forward, and then Black comes in and tempos the queen, and White retreats the queen, and then Black makes his exchange and now has this permanent outpost on e5. But both sides have yet to complete their development, and question is White planning to play, hoping they'll let me draw the forward arrow, and nothing is happening. It's my PC. It's got to be my PC. It's desktop. It's a little over 3 years old, and maybe it's time to get a new one, but I'm not quite ready yet. I like to stretch these things as long as they can go. Okay, anyway, come on. Please go forward. Knight g4. Yeah, I definitely have lag. It's not... it's my PC, and that's going to move. Okay, no, not quite. Let's see. Come on, go forward, please. What a way to ruin a video. Come on, go forward. There it goes. Okay, so let's back it up slightly. The question I had was, well, does Black or White want to, there's my arrow, Does white want to try to stop black from castling? Well, to do so, white's going to have to give back the bishop pair. The rook will go to g8, attacking the bishop. The bishop must take the knight, and black will quote-unquote castle by hand. And black can do that while white's catching up in development. But white opts to bring the bishop back. Now, probably what white will do is castle. I'm sorry, black will castle, and white needs to get castled here too. Knight f3, bishop d3, and the bishop's not really a good piece. Maybe they put the bishop on e2 and get castled himself. And the c4 pawn is a theoretical weakness. Black could opt to bring a bishop out to a6 at some point. It's letting me draw one arrow. So don't tell me it's lagging again. Knight on e5 can pressure that pawn on c4. White could be trying for play on a4, a5, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to attempt to switch to the next game. And I'll keep talking about this one until it switches, because I apparently do have lag. Oh, good, it got me there. Let's go back to the beginning here. Let's go forward for a second and see what's happening. Black is taking plenty of time, which is good. They've played, well, let's look at the time. 25 minutes, meaning, or 25 moves, meaning they've gotten 12.5 minutes back on the clock. So white has spent 10 minutes, he's 22 minutes on, virtually 22.5 minutes on the game, and he's at move 25. White is moving, I don't know how long he took on each individual move, but we'll find out here at least where white went wrong and lost some material, and then discuss what, if any, compensation he has for it. Okay, f4 going for Stonewall. When you play too quick, you mess up my game. You know, it brings me up to where refreshes the game up to the current move. So if you slow down, I can actually cover this game. Okay, I don't think the check really does good. It just allows black to play c6, but here he opts for knight c6. Black, on the other hand, let's look at his time. He spent 40 minutes, got 12.5 back on the clock. He has spent 52 minutes on 25 moves. He's going at just over a 2-minute move pace. Maybe a little quick, maybe not, but at least black's taking his time. Okay, now the bishop has moved twice in the opening. Was that the wise thing? Probably not. Probably better to develop the bishop and get ready to castle. Okay. White just keeps developing. Now makes the trade. Otherwise, if you back the bishop up, let's see, I'll try to explain it. If you back the bishop up, here comes g4 and knight e5. That might explain why he stopped and pinned the bishop. Anyway, let's move forward. He takes the knight and castles. Now here white opts to castle queenside. This could be a little risky in that when you opposite side castle, what's going to happen is the pawn storms come. You're playing for mate. Equal chances. Whoever can come up with a more creative attack is going to prevail here. But by saying risky, it means that you are willing to subject your own king to an attack, and if you'd castled kingside, you wouldn't have. I don't think white really has anything to fear. The game looks pretty even. Neither side has played all that ambitiously, but this is an ambitious move because it invites both sides to castle. Now here, black's willing to accept some double pawns at the cost of a tempo to get an open file. What are the alternatives? Could he try knight here? The idea is then play a6, and if the bishop retreats to a4, doesn't have to, but if it does, you get a nice knight in on c4, and then can continue with some pawn advances. Meanwhile, white will be doing his pawn advances, and it's anybody's ball game. Okay. Now the white attack looks like it's off and running, yet white's going to end up losing material. Why does this happen? We don't know yet. Now I think f5 might be a little early. The worst, if white's planning to take here, his queen will be tempoed by the rook on f8, when black re-exchanges. And let's see. It's not clear exactly yet which file white wants to attack on. He hasn't tried to advance these pawns yet, although, whoops, this pawn can't really advance too easily. It could. Black could take it at the risk of opening up a file against his king. That probably wouldn't be a good idea, but I think h4 is a little more to the theme of this, but let's see what happens. And black opts to take. I think the type of position black should just go about his business, strike back with c5, okay, and let white take if that's what white wants to do. So now the bishop is going to be used as a useful defender. It's covering g7. Thank you for moving, messing me up. Let's see. Now they're do it again. Okay, trying to comment on your game. Whoops, went way too far back. Okay, let's see, a6. Let's go forward a little bit. I may have to come back to this game if they're going to move quick. Okay, wait, a little too far. Okay, so bishop f6, now queen h5. Not quite sure what that does. You can't get a rook to h4 to continue the pressure on h7. Not quite sure what white's doing here. And this bishop isn't helping. White at some point probably need to try to get e4 in, although that weakens d4. Just to try to get this bishop into play. But now we get the rook on the open file. Now that just seems to drop a pawn. Queen takes h6. Free pawn, thank you. But well, you get this pawn back. But still, it's suddenly white has two open files, and black has one less pawn near his king. Save the queen. Now, the first thing I want to ask myself is there anything in rook takes g6 check? And it's one of the first things you should ask yourself in a similar position. And we don't know if there's anything in it until we analyze. I kind of think there isn't, but we want to check to be sure. You never know. So he needs to take back, or he's just giving up a pawn. And now you've sacked a rook for two pawns. And the queen can't do it by herself. These guys aren't really helping. Black has two ways to get out of check. Well, three ways. You could put the king on h8, but he can bring back the bishop and then the knight's safe, or he can bring back the knight, and white just doesn't have enough there. G7 is well covered. I think black would be fine. So the rook sacrifice doesn't seem to be good, and black could probably interpose in either way. So he doesn't. He just relies on a pin, threatens the knight. Nothing's guarding the knight because the queen's not under attack, and the knight's not protected. So white breaks the pin, or black breaks the pin. Let's see, where were we? Okay. White breaks the pin, saves it. Now black offers a queen trade to relieve some of the pressure. Doing so pretty much says that your own attack against the enemy king is not going to go too far. Because you need your queen to attack, although you can attack without a queen. Where were we? Let's see, queen h4. So he opts to retreat the queen, and here's where white sacrifices the exchange. Now we know how he became an exchange down. Does he have enough for it? Probably not. But this rook didn't really belong over here. Belongs this way, and black had entertained thoughts of trying to outpost the knight on c4, inviting white to weaken himself with b3. But anyway, let's see what happens. He sacrifices. Well, actually, it's not a sacrifice. You can't take. I'm just going under the impression that I remember that I think white was an exchange down. Did I miscount the pieces? I've been known to do that before. White's just won a piece. Okay, so now I get the bishop in play. See here, that's where the exchange went. So White sees that e3 is under pressure and chooses to play the knight to e1 to defend it, forgetting that the queen is now protecting this bishop on g7. So all White has to do is play rook e3, or rook f3 rather, and I don't see what Black has, what compensation Black has for the piece. So now there goes the knight, the bishop, and now White's up the exchange, or down the exchange, and a counterattack on the queen. Got a set of rooks off the board, and this is where we stand. White does have an h-pawn that's passed, but that's probably not enough compensation. His bishop isn't all that great. The knight doesn't have that many good squares. It can go to f2, d3, and f4. But right now it's needed to save the pawn on e3. White went and snatched a pawn. Did Black have to give that pawn up? I'm busy evaluating this. Let's see. White came up and attacked the pawn. Yeah, it looks like it's probably a goner, but we got pressure on this pawn in return. White has some compensation. Black has 5 pawns, White has 6. Black's pawns on the queen side are a little loose. Black could play rook e6, or maybe queen takes h3. White's rook e6 looks the safer move. White can go after that pawn on a6, but then Black collects the pawn on h3, and White can get an outside pass pawn that with his a pawn, and that might be more useful than the h pawn. That's bad. Rook e6 is probably Black's best move, because if he doesn't, White's... Oh, wait a minute, we're not threatening the pawn on c6. The queen's guarding it. It's kind of hard to see this queen sometime. That blends in, the color blends in. So White's not threatening this. So you don't need to play rook e6 to guard the pawn. Let's look for another move. Well, nothing is... This pawn is on the take. Actually, it's not. Or is it? See, bishop takes. There's a pin. Okay. But White could play queen takes check, and that would be embarrassing. Because even though the bishop can block, nothing is guarding the rook on e8. So White is threatening the pawn on f7. So what does Black need to do here? Although I think it might be the type of position that's more valuable for White to go after the a-pawn and try to get some counterplay as fast as possible, because these pawns aren't helping Black all as much. Maybe later the pawn can advance to f4, and if it is traded off, Black is and Black returns and collects this pawn. The f7 pawn would become a pass pawn, but it's not going to be valuable just yet, but it will be eventually. So I think Black should probably safeguard that pawn. He brought his king up to h7 earlier. Is it time to put the king back on h8, on g8? Let's see, why did he do that? Rook e8. I think he did it to break the pin with the bishop. He was trying to attack the pawn on d4. Maybe what Black needed to do was punt, so to speak. Oops, want to go the other way. Punt, so to speak, and put the rook on c8. It's kind of an awkward rook. It's not doing anything but defending. But then the plan is to put the queen on e6 and centralize it on e4. And maybe, let's see. Well, he did bring the king back to g8. But, it's too late for that plan now. I think I'm going to move on to the next game. I think white needs to go after this pawn now that this one is safe. And if this pawn is ever traded for this pawn, white will just have to deal with that f-pawn later. So black has winning chances, and white needs to get rid of pawns. So go after this one on a6. Okay, so move on to this. He did go after the pawn. It's just as I flick away. Okay, here, good. We have a lot of time being spent. We are at move 15. White has spent 45 minutes plus spent 52 minutes on 15 moves. A little over 3 minutes a move. Could be running into time pressure. Lunacy E1 is one of my students I teach privately, and he does take his time. And he's improving his game. So we have closed Sicilian. And we've got the f5 break in pretty quick. That does give e5 to white, or to black. Will he use it? Okay, here come the pawns. Watch out. Uh-oh. Getting g5 in, the pawn to f6 is coming. I've seen this happen so many times. Look at that poor bishop on h8. It's doomed. Eventually, black may have no choice but to sacrifice a piece for two pawns. So one could say strategically, white is already winning this game. So what went wrong for black? Well, pushing e6. Got to get this knight into e5. But, this g5 is still coming. But if you take, this pawn can become loose. This black has a battery set up here. So I'm really liking white here. I was watching a game last weekend where somebody got black into this stranglehold with the bishop buried on h8. White was able to conduct an attack and force a mate. So to do that, you pretty much need the queen in there. And black ends up maybe having to play h5, but that'll break the attack unless you have a sack somewhere. But again, this bishop is a goner, so I think strategically white has a winning game, but there's a lot of chess to be played. So I'm going to move on to the next game and come back here in a little bit. Okay, what's happened here? Okay, black is taking his time. Oh wow, he's really taking his time. 45 minutes plus almost 5 minutes on the increment. Spent 50 minutes on 9 moves, spending 5 minutes a move. But with a rook on the lurch, maybe what's gone wrong here? How does white have anything this quick? Okay, this is all book. Usually though, they don't put the bishop on d7. I think the bishop comes to f5, maybe g4. Black is playing to hold on to the pawn. Okay, it's the bad strategy. You just return the pawn. Let white take this. Get your pieces developed, and everything is fine. That's why you want the bishop here. Okay, it's more mobile. If you're going to win this game, you win it later. You don't grab the pawn and hunker down. Okay, and I think this is going to get black in trouble, and might explain why he's taking so much time. Because now somehow white got some pressure on that rook, and here it comes, queen f3. Oops. Looks like black's in trouble here, and he's played b4, willing to give up material. So trying to hold on to this pawn is just not a good idea. White can take the rook, you take the knight. White's up material, can grab the pawn on a7. So, a little sip of Coke there. Looks like white is for choice here. Okay, let's move on to the next one. There's one thing I haven't brought up yet. Not going to bring it up now. Let me load it up here. Usually when there's live commentary on chess.com, the thing they talk about are the tournament leaders, and I haven't even mentioned this yet. And White here is the tournament leader with 2 points, and there's 2 other games going. He's with the have 1.5 points. So his opponent has 1.5, as well as Chess USA. Have I seen Chess USA's game yet? Let's see. I think we did. I just want to look and see. Yeah, Chess USA is back here. We looked at that game. Chess USA is black, and he can fight for he's fighting for the lead too, tied for second. So those are your leaders. We'll come back on this game in a little bit. Let's see. We got to get to the next game. And I hear lots of clicks going on, which is fine. We'll play catch up. No, not that one yet. This one. Well, this one started late. This is the one that started late, and they're already in an ending. Look at Black's time. Now White's the one that came late, but Black, what are you doing? Well, you're up a pawn. Okay, so anyway, we'll come back and comment that on a bit. There was a sack on e7 that wasn't accepted. I remember seeing that. So it's getting ready. Let's see what happens. But Carante is the tournament leader with 2 points. Technically with draw odds, although Chess USA could win and catch him. I assume they haven't played yet. No, they couldn't have played. So that could, if Carante can win this, that might be the last round pairing. Or if Chessman 16 can win it, he would play Chess USA. So we have a Sicilian defense. D5 is often premature. Black can end up with an isolated queen pawn. I think that's exactly what happens. Yep, there it is. Although that in itself is not a negative. You get adequate play for it. And here's the surprise move. I mean, that caught me by surprise. I was thinking, what has he got? And I can't wait to look at this. So I'm taking my first real look at this. Black opts not to take. What was he afraid of? Let's see. Well, if you take, oops, you don't take your whole piece. Can't draw arrows the right direction. Okay, excuse me. Queen takes e7. What does White have? I'm not sure what I mean, I've been blind before, but I don't see what White has. That's why I was anxious to see this game. Everything Black owns is protected. Oh, wait, I see it. Okay. The plan is to play knight takes d5. That tempos the queen, and the knight on f6 is pinned. So then you move the queen, you play knight takes knight check, pawn takes, and bishop takes, and on h6, and Black has a shattered king position. I can understand not wanting to play into that. So the question was h6 the right move? Because, oh, wait a minute, what if you go the other way? Let's see. What if you take with the knight? That's it, they're going to move and take me out of what I'm trying to do. That's okay. Okay, what if you take with the knight? Now, White can still double the pawns, but the knight on e7 could be a useful defender. Knight takes. Okay, bishop takes, pawn takes, but you're up the exchange, okay? And for the moment, d5 is covered, f5 is covered. By this bishop is doing a lot. So the queen can't get to g4, the knight can't get to f5. My first feeling is black's better here if he takes. White's messing up the black pawn structure, but he's also trading off a good piece to do it. And this bishop is on the wrong side of the board, and even these knights are on the queen side. White's trading his only kingside piece, or he would be trading his only kingside piece 2 moves in a row, once with a sacrifice. So I'll look at this later and try to get a better evaluation of it. Let's see what did happen. He chose to take this, and now there's pressure on d4. So black's getting some play here. White deactivates his rook. Now notice that this rook is out of play. So black's got a pretty active game, so we can't fault black for what he's doing. I think he's made a reasonable and well thought out decision not to accept the exchange. So one game ended. Don't know which one yet, but we'll find out soon enough. Okay, so now a good thing to take back would be with the pawn. Keep the bishop where it's at. It's doing a good job covering g4, f5, and e6. Okay, good. This also opens up a b file. That covers the b file. Oh, guys, slow down, please. Just for a moment, let me catch up on this game. Okay. Queen a7, yeah, that makes sense. Put the queen, keep the pressure on d4. Keep the knight out of c5. You don't want that knight hopping into c5. I mean, like queen c7. Hey, hello, I've got a nice square for my knight, and I might back it up. You know, get a nice outpost there. Anyway, queen a7, knight b. He's headed for c5. See, he's got 2 knights on it. Although you could play knight e4 here. That looks like a good move. Threatens a check. Keeps the knight out of here. Then maybe might be risky, but knight e4 requires some attention down here. Suppose rook f3 for the fun of it. Now c5 for black. This then masks an attack on this square, a4. Yeah, that might have been a good move, knight e4. Something else to look at when I cover the game. They've got the outpost for what it's worth. I kind of like white just because he has that outpost, but it doesn't mean that white can keep it. We could play a4, the idea of going here, but then, or a5, and then white can play a4. The knight can come back to d7, and we can drive him out of that outpost. And game's probably about even. Okay, that leaves one other game. And look at that. And okay, so 51 moves. Black has gotten 26 minutes on the increment. Gained 15 minutes on the clock, so he spent 11 minutes on 51 moves. What's that translate as? 51 moves in 11 minutes, or rounded out to 50 moves in 10 minutes. He's making 10 moves every 2 minutes. He's moving every 6 seconds. Okay, this is not blitz chess. So it's unfortunate that, I mean, nothing against black here, but it's unfortunate black is winning this playing so quick. So white had to do something wrong to achieve such a disaster here. Okay, white's ahead in developments ever so slightly. Black has backward pawn on d6. A good strategy for white would be to play the bishop to g5. And there's a draw for in this game. Probably decline. Bishop g5. The idea with this is you can capture and try to get this outpost. Although black has counterplay on b2. Oops. Back to the beginning. I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to cover this, but I want to know how white got in trouble here. Well, I remember looking at earlier, it was a rook and a knight each, and just a flick ago there that was knight and pawning, and somehow white had to give up his knight for a pawn. But here, white is won a pawn. White's just up a pawn. Knight. Come on, guys, slow down. Okay, let's see. White's won a pawn. Not yet. There is. Okay. I don't know if Queen D3 is the best. Gentlemen. Well, I'm going to come back to this game because since as fast as they're playing, that's all they're going to do. That was the last game to start, and it may be one of the first ones done. Let's go back to this game and see what happens. Okay, there's two games that ended. Okay, what's happened here? See, we remember driving the bishop out of there. And let's see what. There's a trick here. What's going on here? What is going on here? Knight takes e4. What am I missing? Oh, I see. Okay. The point is, if queen takes bishop f5, a little slow today. The rook is collected. Looks like black's bagged a pawn here. So what did white need to do? Well, white needed to do what I was talking about earlier. Develop his pieces. Get the king castled. Go this way and this way. And I thought the rook belonged on a1 anyway. I was talking about if black plays b6, white shoves his a pawn and tries to create something along the a file. Okay, so there goes a pawn. And black has picked up the bishop pair again. White's lock pawns are on the color of his bishop. Black is not only a pawn ahead, black is ahead in development. And now white immediately undevelops his queen. I guess he wants to play, does he want to try to play knight f3 here? Yeah. Okay, so immediate pressure, develop the queen, attack a pawn, and that's where we're at. Looks to me like black is starting to get the upper hand here quick. We'll come back to that one. Okay, this game, we have a checkmate. Do we have a checkmate? Sure looks like a checkmate to me. Let's see, there's some comments here. I'm not sure what, remember this game, let's see. This is the one where white opted to castle queenside and then won a piece and then lost it back. And okay, that's coming back. The queen goes to you get a free piece. When the queen goes back to h6, it's threatening that guy. And I was saying that white needs to go after that a pawn, and that's what he did. That's where we left. Okay. Very interesting. Give back the exchange. Okay, if knight takes, queen takes, check. And that's what happens. If king d1, queen takes d4 check, queen takes, bishop takes d4. I don't know about that. Let's see. Well, we can analyze it in a moment. Let's see what happened. Bishop d2. Here, forcing him to interpose. That's how the mate happened. Okay, so what he needed to play on this check was king d1, because king b1 gets back rank mated. Now, what's black's plan? Why won't it let me play king d1? Well, I wish it would, but it won't. It's not letting me play. Yesterday it was letting me play moves when games were over. So let's see. Just the advantage of playing moves is I can illustrate it better. Check. We gave the check. You need to move the king. Now, queen takes. Queen takes, bishop takes. White does have an outside pass pawn, and black's pawn advantage is a doubled pawn. Could also take with the bishop, but that could spring the white queen loose at some point. Go grab a pawn and threaten a check to win one of these other pawns. I'm not sure about this exchange sack if it was all that good. It won't let me play king d1 here. Well, anyway, maybe let me back things up. Where'd this queen come from? e3. It won't even let me play that. Okay, well, white you had it in your grasp. You won a piece, and unfortunately, you lost it back. But here's the reason why you lost. It's right down here. See, I'm highlighting it. 80 minutes and 51 seconds. Okay, that means you took 9 minutes came off your clock. You got 16 and a half. You spent 25 minutes on the game for 33 moves. You moved it less than a minute a move. And that's why you lost your rook on f5 when you'd won a piece. That's why you got checkmated. If you'd taken your time, you probably wouldn't have found out. Here he says he messed up losing his rook. Just lazy. You turned the tables nicely, and he gave it back. They're agreeing, and it's cool. They're being cool with each other. You can't win every game, and you're going to throw stuff away and you get careless. And your opponent shows you the error in your ways, and hopefully you learn something for the next game. Okay, the video's at 42 minutes. I want to get it up to an hour and then close it off. So we've got one game we've covered out of the way, and let me close it. And let's see, move on to this game. And here it looks like black has given back the bishops. He's down a piece. He's got his queen activated. Okay, let's not sure where we're at. Okay, where we left off. Okay, the queen getting to e1, e5. Now the queen to g3 because he was covering h4 or h3 rather. Now the knight came in. And it's good, I think, to trade this bishop. It's not doing white much, and this gives white a nice outpost of knight d5. That's a tremendous knight. And it's threatening to win. It's threatening to checkmate. Look at that. Isn't that nice? It's threatening a checkmate. So black gives up his bishop. Now the threat is to win the queen. And he takes a pawn and guards the knight, attacks the knight. Now a knight check. And obviously black has to play king h8. I'm not sure what he's waiting for. Both sides are taking their time. I believe black has taken more time here trying to solve things, but more than compared earlier. I think white was spending more time at one phase, and now black is catching up trying to save this. So now he's moved to the corner. How does white convert this advantage? Okay, let's count them up. White has 6 pawns, black has 7. Okay, black's extra pawn is a doubled pawn. No, black has all 8 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he has all 8 pawns. Okay, that didn't protect the pawn on b2. Played kind of quickly by white. Okay, let's back it up a second. And if black moves, it'll refresh. What would have been a better move here? Let's see. I'd like to do something with that knight on e2, but I don't see exactly where I want to do it. I look at it and I want to do something with it because knights are so much fun. We've done about all we can with the other knight. It's sitting nicely on e7. Let's see. It's kind of restricted. f4's covered. g3's not vacant. Uh, and if even it got to G3, where's it going next? Okay, I'm not sure where you can put that guy. I think you need to just punt. Well, hey, wait a minute. No. Black's forking two pawns. So White's move was to protect the pawn on D3, and says heck with the pawn on B2. You're going to get it. In which case, 2, 3, 4. Black will have 3 pawns for the piece, but I don't think it's enough. Bishop takes, pawn takes, opens up the H file for White, and that's probably going to be deadly. Black's knight on E8 is stuck. It's guarding G7. The rook can't come over necessarily and do it, or you drop knight takes G8. Black's best is just, let's see, if he takes on B2, does White take on E6? Queen takes B2, bishop takes E6. Pawn takes, then shove the pawn to E7. Or I'm sorry, F7. God, I can't spell. The knight will go over where? G8? G7? And if White can get his queen to F6, he's awful close to getting a mate, but I don't think enough. I just grab the pawn and hope for the best. Okay, let's move to the next game. And there we've seen the rook go. Not much has happened. White did take the rook, and Black needs to take this, and game over. And I think this game did end here. No, not this one yet. There's still one more. Okay. This is our board 1 leader. Oh, I didn't mention who was leading the lower section. There's 2 sections. There was a 3-way tie between Myth Bullet Chess and the guy who's playing A1, B2, C3, X9, Y6, Z3. Interesting handle, alternating letters and digits. Progress up ABC, then XYZ at the end, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 9, 6, 3. You'd think he might go 9, 8, 7 or 7, 8, 9. But anyway, creative name. Chessman Z2. I've covered his games. I don't think he's playing this round. Let me see. I have the pairings here. Seems like he wasn't paired. I didn't copy the half point or full point buys. So it looks like when I get to that game for the lower section that but let's get back to this one. Let's see. I was saying the game was about even. White has that outpost on C5, and Black can start working on that. Saving the pawn, giving the queen a direct path, although White's pieces are all on the queen side here. Still too close to call. White's taking his time, so objectively you could say that taking his time could give him a better position, but that's not always the case. Black has plenty of time that he needs to use. Let's talk a little statistics here, or not necessarily statistics, strategy. Okay, if I'm Black here, let's forget the position for a moment. Let's talk clock. Okay, Black has 58 minutes. You're going to get 30 seconds every increment, or 30 seconds every move as an increment. So move 40 is always a key point in the game. The games are usually over by 40, or it's pretty clear who's going to win by move 40. Not always, but in most of the cases. So Black is going to gain 10 minutes on his clock over the next 20 minutes. That gives him 68 minutes. Now, White, conversely, will also gain 10 minutes on his clock over the next 20 moves. That'll give him 43 minutes. So Black has a time advantage of 68 to 43. That's close enough to 6 to 4. We'll just look at raw numbers, or 3 to 2. So for every 2 minutes White takes on a move, Black can take 3. Okay? And Uh, with 68 minutes for 20 moves, which he's going to have, he will still have 8 minutes on his clock and the increment every time he moves. So black needs to take 3 minutes every move. Okay? Simple and done. And don't worry what white's taking. Take 3 minutes a move, and if white moves quickly, white may not find the best moves. If white keeps going slow, white can't take 3 minutes a move. White has to take more like 2 minutes a move, because I said he had 44 minutes, and well, it's actually less now. His clock is ticking. He'll have more like 42 minutes counting the increment for 20 moves. He's got just over 2 minutes. So you start working the clock the best you can. That doesn't mean you take you set a stopwatch for 3 minutes in your head, and then when 3 minutes elapse, you play a move. No, you might want to take 8 or 9 minutes on a move. Find out where you're going, get a strategy, and use your time, and maintain the status quo. Okay, that's clock strategy you can think about. Now this game ended. We never got a chance to see this because they were continue to move too fast. But white was up a clear pawn. I remember that. I think Queen E2 was a better choice. Well, not necessarily. Knight F4 comes in. I go on instinct first, and I look at the board. See, the thing about Queen E2, why I say it's instinct, is I'm coming up an open file. When I see Queen D3, I'm saying, oh, he just attacks me. But maybe his goal is let him attack you with Rook D8 and put the queen on E3. And boom, just like that. Okay, so decent strategy, but white's better. White's a pawn up. Okay. Attack the queen. Develop a rook. Now we have knight C4, or E4, or E5 rather, attacking C4. White's still a pawn up. B2 is hanging. Counterattack the queen. Now, I think you just dropped the pawn on B2, but, oh wait, you have a threat on D8. Okay, stops that. Attack the queen. Now you got a pass pawn, but B2 is falling. So, and it was under some pressure already. See, if you guard it with Rook B1, you take it anyway, and removal of the defender of the knight on C3. Okay, so let's see. We're at 53 minutes now. Let's get through this game and then look around, then take a break. Okay, so we're going to have 2 games completed. Now white's given back his pawn. So how could have you avoided this? He wasn't in any kind of trouble here. Maybe the knight D5. Maybe what you need to do is, after this, is just bring the queen back to C2. Although that allows knight F4. Ugh. Okay. Queen B3. Queen C3. Queen C3, you're keeping your eye, or B3, you're keeping an eye on B2. The only weak pawn in, well, maybe black can generate some threats here. Queen B3, knight G4. Hello, king. Threatening a mate. G3, then swing the queen over. Get a little risky. So maybe the knight D5 plan was not correct. Just oppose rooks. Well, that walks into a pin. Hard to say. You can always put the bishop here too. Shut the file down. But anyway, let's move forward. There's some idea. I've given some ideas that players can sit down afterwards, take my ideas, analyze the game. Now white's down a pawn. He was up a pawn. Now he's down a pawn. Because black just got another pawn. Yeah, he won the pawn on D5. And this is helping black, trading queens. Now the king goes out of play. This forces the rooks off. Now, a lot of people say what he got it's a knight and pawn ending. How do you evaluate that? Well, here's the simple rule that'll work. Not every case, but most of them. Imagine the knight's off the board. Who wins the king and pawn ending? If you can answer that correctly, you know who wins the knight and pawn ending. Okay, pretty simple, huh? So let's picture the knight's off. Looks like black wins the king and pawn ending because after b5, he's going to force a pawn through. So white starts to activate his king. Uh-oh, there goes another pawn. Finally got the king over. Yeah, white's not doing anything but shuffling, and white's knight's sitting on a3 out of play. Now two passed pawns. Yeah, this is killing. I gave up the pawn to stop a pawn, but now black penetrates. There was a draw for I know, but black objectively just cleans up here. He can, if anything, he can sack the knight on f4 and be completely winning, but he doesn't have to. He can just use that knight and start winning pawns. Okay, so a little tricky there. Black won by playing too quickly. White lost by playing too quickly too. Maybe he felt some obligation to move fast since he was late. 53. He spent 15 minutes and got 26 back. 42 minutes for 53 moves. But you see, you were in first place and a three-way tie, and now you're not. But anyway, too bad you came late. Too bad you moved too quick. I think you've, with careful play. Let's just take one more look. With careful play. Oh no, it's before this. Not quite. Let's see. Well, I do like knight d5. What about a little preventative maintenance here? What about c3? That takes the square away from black. Now if he tries bishop takes, queen takes, and knight e5. Whoops. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight e5. Then go ahead. This is up here. Then go ahead and take this critter. And when he takes that critter, b2 is loose. But then you go ahead and play b3 and attack the knight. Should probably be okay. All right, let's see. Let me close this one down. Which window was it? Myth Bullet Chess and ABCD XYZ. It's easy to say your name, something like that. Well played. Both sides were guilty of moving too quick. Maybe black doesn't lose a pawn if he doesn't move quick, but he found the right moves when he had to. So anyway, good game, gentlemen. Best of luck last round. Okay, close that one down. Now the video's at 59 minutes. Let's do a quick summary. I think we have 4 games left. 2 down, 4 to go. White still hasn't developed his king side here. Wow, this one's opened up. This is the one where white won a piece. Now he's got 2 pieces, but his rook is loose. Come back to that one after the break. Black has lost the exchange here, and then this game here among the leaders. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for watching this. I'm going to take a short break and start another video up. And thank you so much for your time. Take care.